Today is about the illusions of the mind and Maya and all these stories that we have inside of our heads. Getting past that to see the true reality of what's around us. Tomorrow is on love. It's on opening the heart, bringing connection into your life, relationship. And on Thursday, we're skipping Wednesday because it's the day at a time, so it doesn't really exist. It's not even there. On Thursday, I'm going to be talking about expression, authenticity, vulnerability, getting deep into your own core and letting that come out of you. So, today, we're talking about the mind. And, it's funny because before I came in today, and as I've been prepping this speech and this talk, I've had this doubt whispering in my head, and the doubt was one of those stories that comes up. And it was saying, these guys don't know the philosophical Rodolfo. They know the guy that sits over in Clear Cafe behind his laptop all the time. Maybe, pauses every so often to give a hug, and Sunday mornings is dancing it up at the yoga bar, but they don't know the philosophical Rodolfo. So are they going to accept it? And it started to make me really look at all the different roles that I've played and that we all play. Just in the 2.5 years that I've been here in Bali, I've played roles as a resort manager, as a healer, as an event promoter, a volunteer, and my favorite one, Bali's official hugger. That one I will continue to play. I love it. Before I came to Bali, I played the roles of student, of soldier, of artist, of entrepreneur, and for 5 years under the name of Darshana Atman, I played the role of a spiritual leader in San Diego, California. And it's really interesting for me to be back up here because I haven't really done this role in quite a while. And the beautiful thing is, even though throughout this entire talk I'm going to be saying how much these roles are not real, I'm going to be playing this role today. My sister once said to me, and it was a beautiful quote that she said, it's okay if you have roles, just don't identify to them. But be them fully when they're there. And so that's what I'll be doing. Given that, I want to make a very strong distinction here. Well, actually, first, let me just ask a question. How many of you out there know me personally? Cool. So, I'll ask a different question. How many of you got a hug from me either today, yesterday, or just before this? Okay, so how many of you know me personally? All the hands should go up. I want to make the point here that we're not separate in any way. That's critical. Because here's the thing, do you guys know that public speaking is the scariest thing for people to do statistically? They say that people are more scared of public speaking than they are of dying. They'd rather die than get up in front of people. Now, that's dramatic. I have a theory about this. I think that the reason that is because fear I think is a lack of connection. It's me being up here all by myself while all of you are out there staring at me going, look, he's all by himself. He's vulnerable.
You need a hug.
That's why I hugged you all beforehand. Now, I want to make sure that we are connected. Even though I'm going to play the role today of the speaker, I'm not your teacher, you're not the students, we're all here to journey together. Okay, I'm going to be your companion on a ride that we're taking today. Given that, you have to make a commitment, and that is to journey with me. As we go, I'm going to be presenting some questions. I'm not giving any answers. If you came for answers, sorry. Here's the thing about answers. Answers don't actually give us anything new. Because if it's an answer that you can recognize and you can go, yeah, that makes sense, it's because you're comparing it against knowledge you already have. I want us to find something new today. I want us to go places that we haven't discovered, haven't experienced, haven't felt before. So that's the intention. You guys on? Okay. So, where to begin? I'd like to start actually back when I was about 19 years old. Something happened to me that kind of opened me up to this idea that there was more to reality than what I had been perceiving. I was on a phone call with my sister, and she asked me this question. She goes, so do you feel more like yourself now? And it seemed like a really innocent question, if it wasn't for the fact that for weeks before that question, I had been complaining to her and my mom saying, look, every time I come over to visit, I feel like I'm being limited. I don't feel like myself. And I've been struggling with this internal conflict of, I'm more than the brother, I'm more than the son, I'm more than, you know, this or that, but who am I? And as I continued to struggle with that, unfortunately I was getting really frustrated when I would go and visit them because they would pigeonhole me into those roles. So she asked this question, very innocently, do you feel more like yourself? And I said, no, not at all. And we continued to talk, and the conversation started to get a little heated, emotional, as these kind of things do. And all of a sudden, something happened. I can't explain exactly what it was, but some trigger happened because of this question. And probably the best way that I can describe it is that if you could imagine that all your life you've been swimming underneath just the surface of reality, and in an instant you suddenly come up out of the water, you take a deep breath and you go, and you look around and there's a world you've never known, but it's been there the whole time. That's what it felt like. Like I was breathing, seeing, feeling for the first time. And my poor sister's on the phone yelling at me, going, are you saying you don't love us? Are you saying you're not? Are you doing all this stuff? And I'm sitting there with this big silly grin. I couldn't help it. Something had just filled me. And I started saying stuff to her that I, at the time, had no idea what I was saying. It was almost like I had stepped outside of myself and I was standing next to me looking, going, am I really going to speak if I said it? Oh, that was true, but oh, geez. There was no tact, there was no working around, no candy coating, it was just truth. And it came hard. She had asked me at one point, well, first, what I told her, I said, look, I think I know why it's been so hard for me to find myself. She goes, well, why? Because I think who I really am, truly, completely, fully as myself, would offend you. She goes, well, why do you say that? Because it's not the person you've known. And because who I am, complete and full, doesn't need you. Doesn't need mom, doesn't need dad, doesn't need anybody to be complete. And this was something that literally was just coming out of my mouth, and I was sitting there agape, witnessing it, going, oh. And so she started asking a lot of tougher questions. She went deeper and got more frustrated with my answers because they just kept coming from that place of authenticity, of truth. It wasn't an identity trying to protect itself in any way. She asked me stuff like, are you saying you don't love us? And I said, well, do I love you because you're my sister? No. Because that's just a role and another identity. Do I love you because there's just love that exists and it's unconditional? Yes. So I don't really understand. And I continued saying all these things like that, and I would tell her things like, look, you're asking me questions, but you're seeking answers rather and trying to confirm your own beliefs. You're not actually seeking something new. And eventually she hung up on me. And my mom calls back. She goes, what's going on? Your sister says you don't love us anymore. I found myself. I was very lucky in that moment because my mom actually said something to me when I described to her what was going on. I said, look, I can't explain where, what, how, what's going on with me at the moment, but all I can tell you is I can't wipe the smile away. And her response, rather than freaking out, was, okay, I don't really understand, but I'm really happy for you. And here's the thing, is when we dissolve all of the layers, we take away all the stuff that we use to protect ourselves, the things that we use to actually falsely connect with each other, and you can really sincerely, authentically express who you are and express into a world that you're starting to see as reality, people will simply accept it because you're going to touch that spot inside of them. You're going to inspire it inside of them. So that phone call was like the pinnacle for me. It was my first moment of just absolute awakening and going, okay, things are going to change. And it all happened because of a question. A simple question. And I call it a question that's a true question. See, most questions, we ask these questions out of desire. And desire seeks to fulfill something, which means that you only want an answer, and if that answer doesn't match what you're looking for, you can be like, oh, let me go ask somebody else. Because you're really just looking to confirm something for yourself. But a true question is asked out of interest. it seeks only depth. It wants to go deeper and deeper into what's going on in this moment. It's the kind of thing that if I was to ask somebody, how's the weather? Immediately, already in all of your minds, I can tell, there's a set of answers, right? That you're accustomed to. Well, it's rainy, it's cloudy, it's sunny, it's spotty, whatever it is. And if somebody comes back to you and goes, yeah, it's purple. The weather's purple. You're going to kind of look at them odd. It's going to stop you for a moment. It'll be good because it'll put you in the present moment. But you're going to go, okay, crazy. No, they're hippie. No. What would happen if you could ask questions that didn't have any set answers? That actually were just being asked because something wanted to know what was happening in this moment. For instance, if I ask you now, do any of you have a true question? In your minds right now, you just asked yourselves, do I? That's a true question. You had absolutely no answer in mind, but something maybe started to rise up from within you. That's the thing about a true question, is because it's in the present moment, because it's something that isn't seeking an answer, as soon as you ask it, it starts to bubble up something inside. It's almost like that true question sends a message out to the universe and says, I've got this equation, I need some balancing. Send me something. And that's why we learn something new. So as I continue this talk, as questions come up, because remember, I'm here as your friend, as your companion. I'm not here to teach you. I'm here to work with you through this journey. So as questions come up, let's go through them together. Even if I pose a question, oh, there's one coming up already. Even if I pose a question, go with me on it. Don't just take my answer or what my interpretation is. That's my experience. Yours will be different. Yes?
So I appreciate you talking about that experience, because I think we all have those moments. So whatever triggered that moment puts you in a place of alignment with your total being, a place of enlightenment. And I know we can access that place on a daily basis and have the power to do that. So my question is, what triggered that? What led up to that, to you all of a sudden? And I've had that experience. I know what that's like. You know, everything just opening up.
Yeah.
And I think we're working towards the evolution of living in that place on a daily basis.
You said, can we make it a daily practice? And you said enlightenment at one point, which was not really part of the question, but I'm going to come back to that because most people think enlightenment is an achievement. Like, oh, I finally made it. Now I can rest. I'm in nirvana. Everything's beautiful. Okay. It doesn't work that way. The way that I define enlightenment is a perpetual question. That's the day by day. It's can you in every moment walking around say, what am I feeling now? Who am I now? What are they now? Oh, what's that now? Oh, how's that now? Every moment simply questioning, not in a way of deconstruction, that's analysis, but in a way of curiosity. Can you start to see things as if it's the first time you've ever seen them? Take all the knowledge you have before and put it away. I'll tell you guys a little story. Some of you may have heard this before. The original Buddha, Gautama Sakyas, he exemplifies this because his whole thing is presence. Buddhism is about being in this moment. After he had attained a little bit of fame, he's walking through and he's going to give this sermon. Many of his followers, thousands of people who have heard him speak before and have heard of these wise things that he's sharing, have come to hear. And they've built a stage for him to stand up on and expound his knowledge and his wisdom. And as he walks up onto the stage, he notices in the steps of the stage a little lotus blossom. And he bends down and he picks it, and he goes up on stage, silent. And he just sits there twirling it. This flower, this lotus blossom in his hands. And as he's twirling it, he's just watching it. He's not even looking at the audience. He's just watching it and smiling, and he's so engrossed in the moment, in the beauty, in the ecstasy of that flower right then. And eventually he sees somebody in the audience who's smiling, and he goes down and he hands it to them. And then he walks off the stage, that's it. It became known as the flower sermon. It's one of his most famous sermons. Here's why. As he was walking up, had his mind been in the future, thinking about the expectations and all the things that the people wanted to hear from him, then he wouldn't have noticed the flower. He wouldn't have been present to it. Had his mind been in the past, he would have seen the flower, compared it to other flowers he's seen, and gone, flower. But he was present. It was like the first time he'd seen this lotus blossom. It was like, wow. Picked it up, silently, twirled. So, not an answer, but an inquiry, a deeper going into what you propose to us, is can we, day by day, see things as if they're the first time? And if you can, and all you have to do is question what your belief about it already is, what your knowledge about it already is. It's a perfect actual segue into this idea of, when we ask questions, we're normally trying to relieve ourselves of something, a problem. We ask a question because we want a solution of some sort. And if you can ask a question instead where you're looking more at your belief about something. So let's say somebody comes along, they've got a scarcity mentality, and they go, oh, how can I make some money so that I can be happy? Well, they're going to have a lot of answers, a lot of possibilities, and they're probably going to stop themselves on every single one because there's a belief behind it that's stopping them already. What if instead they went, am I unhappy? That's the true question. And then that takes them deeper into finding out, well, am I unhappy now? Am I happy now? What am I doing now that's making me happy? Is that person making me happy? Or is that person am I making me happy? All of these things, and you just keep getting a perpetual question, right? You guys are probably starting to see a theme in this. It's questions. When we're trying to figure out what's real, you have to realize that reality is changing all the time. Because of that, that's why you have to ask constant questions. Become curious and interested and in awe and wonderment of what this moment's presenting. Recently, back in May, I went to Thailand and I spent 10 days at a monastery and I was doing meditation there. And as I was sitting for like 10 hours a day, I'm sitting there and at some point I hear this buzzing sound and I'm like, oh crap, there's a mosquito. Okay, do I just sit? Yeah, I'm gonna be zen. No, it's gonna sting me. No, man, then I'm gonna have to deal with the sensation. Maybe I open my, maybe I move. Maybe I kill it. No, ahimsa, no harm. I'm in a monastery. What would the monks think? And then all of a sudden, I realized something. There was no mosquito. Somebody had turned on a really old fan, and it was like... And I started laughing at myself on the inside because I had just tormented myself with all these possibilities and solutions and answers of, oh, maybe I do this, maybe I do that, and caused myself suffering because of all the options that I gave myself while judging myself on every single one, rather than just going, is it really a mosquito? What is real? And that's actually the question that came up almost immediately after that little mosquito scenario, and after I opened my eyes and made sure it really was a fan. I closed my eyes again and the question came up in me, what is real? And all of a sudden I started to realize, oh, well, the mosquito wasn't real, and even my thoughts weren't real, and the stories I started to make up weren't real, and that pain that I'm feeling in my back, that's not actually real. That's an interpretation of having a sensation. Well, the sensation feel. No, the sensation's not real. What is real? And it started coming down to just the sensations and to the act of sensing. Like right now I can hear a fan. Is the fan real? Only because we've defined it as a fan. Hearing, that's real. So you start to move with that, and that's what I started to do. I started to look at, okay, if hearing, if seeing, if smelling, if the senses before interpretation can be real, how do I stop the interpretation? How do I not go into the mind? How do I not get stuck in this mixing, matching of things that, you know, the mind's just there to compare. How can I be present? So I started simply laughing at myself every time that I would interpret. Every single time that something happened, I'd be like, oh, that's because, no, that's not real. And then I would ask, in this moment, what's real? One of the things that I started to find eventually, when you start to take away all the interpretations, and you start to take away all of what you think you're hearing, what you think you're seeing, what you think you're smelling, touching, feeling, all of this stuff, the story, when you take it away, you're left with this emptiness. Nothing. Is nothing real? Maybe. I'll tell you guys a secret about emptiness, about nothingness. It's not empty. Take this for instance. As I'm speaking right now and that vibration is tickling your eardrum, where did it come from? Ask that question. As you look around and you see the smiles on everybody's faces, where did the seeing come from? As those of you who have come in a little later and you've looked around and you're like, there's no empty seats. What was the thought that went through your head? Wow, if there was something empty, there would be a potential for me to sit. So emptiness is not empty because it is full of potential. It's full of possibility. I'm going to give it that possibility for a little moment. It's really fun and dramatic to go on the chair like this. You notice when you're not looking, not seeking, but you're just attentive and present, how peaceful it is. And then the moment you start to think, should I be doing something now? Maybe I should ask something. Well, no, somebody else will ask something. I just want to sit here. And then you start to get anxious and that frustration and that suffering and all that stuff comes up. Just take a breath. Remember, emptiness is actually everything. Some of you may already know this, and actually probably everybody that saw my posting on Facebook for this talk. I'm going into silence starting August 1st. I don't know exactly for how long. And it's a practice of this. Of just being present, seeing what happens when I'm not busy trying to express, but rather I'm listening, I'm questioning, and I'm experiencing. So, anybody have a question?
So when you're silent, actually your mind talking or just simply something else talking?
Good question. Probably both. Something I've noticed when I go into meditation and as I start asking questions is there's 3 levels, right? First there's the doer, there's this person, me, that's going around doing stuff and having a fun time. And then if I pause long enough and go, okay, I'm going to separate from the doer and be the observer, I'm going to watch and witness. And that's kind of that first level, and you go, I'm crazy. And then that observer still has judgment, still compares. That's why he says, well, I'm crazy. So what happens if you take it even one level further and you simply go, oh, and I'm aware of the witness that's watching the crazy. At that level, there's no judgment. It's just awareness. So, in response to your question, John, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of thinking, which is still the doer and still the observer that's going to go on in my mind. And then there's also going to be this other part that slowly, hopefully, is going to be moving in and taking more of the space.
Is that possible also to build a wall between, the thought experience and whatever is transpired during that silence. It's so many experiences that we witness, and also so many uncertainty. We don't know what we know, you don't know. And how do you, I'm not connecting to that, but how do you separate?
I guess the question is, you're asking, how do you separate out the doer, the witness, and the observer, and so that you can see it all, right?
Exactly. When you're silent, you technically, if I could say, thoughtless or breathless or anything less. You know what I mean? So it's when you're observing and you are also going through the experience of what the event will take you into your mind. It's how do you separate that world, or how do you connect it?
Well, I guess my question to that would be, do you want to separate it? Or do you want to just start to observe all of it at once? I heard a great metaphor once where they were saying, in meditation as you're observing, imagine all the thoughts being train cars as they're going by. And you're standing there watching them, and so maybe there's like a thought of a person, a belief, a chocolate cake, and then you're like, whoa. That's attachment. So you're watching the thoughts go by, and eventually the idea would be not to separate the train, not to separate the tracks, not to do any of that, but actually to see it going by as one fluid motion and then start seeing between the cars, the space. If I look at these tables or the benches and cushions you guys are they solid? They seem so at this level, right? But we ask the question, is that the reality? No, we go deeper, we go to the atomic level, there's a lot of space. Same thing here. If we can take our thoughts, our person, our identity, all of that stuff, and we just take and go, let me go deeper, let me go to a more subtle level, and is it actually an identity that's separate over here and this over here, or is it all just a bunch of space and little expressions popping up all over the place? I find that one of the reasons we have trouble actually letting go of these veils of illusion, these identities, is that what we've done is, it's like we've taken a cup and we started to pour water into it, and that water is all of our experiences. It's everything that we've been conditioned to know, believe, to understand. It's things people have told us, it's our experiences, everything, right? And we start to pour it into this glass. And then we become so attached to it, we identify so strongly with each of those different elements, that water freezes into a block of ice. And eventually we forget that the cup is there. We forget there's actually a container that is holding the space for all of it. And now, because we have this big block of ice, what happens to a block of ice when you just leave it out? Melts, right? That's kind of scary. If you think you are that block of ice, just forms that have come up and expressions that have popped forward, and they're going to come and go. Because who you are is actually all of it, and the cup, and what's outside of the cup. None of it is separate. Another example that maybe will bring a little more understanding to this. Mind you, again, I'm not giving any answers, I'm just giving many options. When I was in college, I was studying religious studies, and I was going around to all of the different religious institutions and asking questions of the leaders. I would go to the Muslim mosque and talk to the imam. I would go to the Seventh-day Adventists, to Jewish Hillel, to all these different places. And one day I was at a Christian youth group meeting, and they had heard who I was and that I was just going around exploring and checking everybody out. And they had this guest speaker who'd been going all around the world sharing this Christian faith and these ideas. And so he came to me, he's like, hey, I've got a question for you, since you've got all this experience with these other belief systems. And he went up on this chalkboard and he drew a sun, like radiant sun, and he goes, okay, so let's say this is God, this is pure. And then he drew over on the side a little stick figure, and he goes, and this is man, impure, way over here. And he said, now there's a gap, and he drew this big like chasm in between the two. He goes, there's this gap between the pure and the impure. How, in the things that you've studied, do you cross the gap? And then for him, he said, well, in the Christian faith, we draw a little, and he drew a little cross, and it was like the bridge, and you walk across it. And so I sat there, and I looked at it for a little while, and then I said, take out a piece of paper. And he took out a piece of paper, blank. And I said, okay, right now, the paper, let's say this is the pure. Would you say it's pure? He's like, yeah, it's clean, nothing's on it. Okay, wonderful. And I said, okay, now draw a little dot on the piece of paper. So he drew a little dot. I said, oh, wonderful. Now what is it? He's like, well, it's impure. It has this dot. It's an expression, right? There's an expression now on the whole. And I said, okay, great. So let's say the dot's man and the paper is God. And now you have this impurity on the purity. But are they separate? No. One just arose out of the other. And the guy just kind of sat there looking at me like, But that's the idea, right? That we aren't actually separate. Reality is something that's this continuum flowing and moving through each one of us. All of us are just expressions of that. And the easier we're able to flow in and out of our expressions, our identities, our roles, the easier the balances get to happen. Have any of you seen I Heart Huckabees, the movie? Yeah. Great movie. So there's a scene in there where Dustin Hoffman takes his blanket and he's telling one of the other main characters, he's like, okay, so this is the universe. In like a good Dustin Hoffman kind of way, and he's like, this is the universe, and he pokes like a little hole up, and he makes a mountain, and he goes, okay, this is me, and he makes another one over here, and this is you, and this is the building we're in, and he starts moving the blanket all around, and as he's doing it, each time he makes a new expression, the whole blanket has to change. You get it? So each one of us, in order to find the truth of what's going on in this moment, I'm not even going to say in reality, because that reality is changing every moment. But rather, the truth of this moment, you have to be able to let go of the last one. And trust that you're in this container, where even though you let go of that, the variables that created it could come again. So don't worry about it.
Can you say that again, please?
Whoa. That was in that moment.
That's the dancing moment.
Don't worry about it.
Sorry, it was so nice.
Simply that every moment is an invitation to be present.
About the container part, about leaving the container behind, like being now, leaving the container behind. But the second part that you said was about how in this new moment, everything that you created from before can come back to you. Something like that?
Sure. So think about a flame,
I mean, it makes
right?
sense. I just,
Yeah.
how you phrased it was really beautiful.
Thank you. So think about a flame on a candle. You know, this flame is creating its flare and all of its stuff and its expression, and it's creating heat, and it's sharing that with everybody. Now, mostly we look at these candles and we look at these flames and we think, oh yeah, it's constant. But it's not. It's really fast, coming and going, coming and going, coming and going. And as long as it has the wick, the wax, the filament, the whatever it needs, the oxygen, it can create itself again. It's different a little bit each time. So in that same sense, there is a container. There is the potential. It's what I was saying with emptiness earlier, that always there is this massive conscious emptiness that's just ready to express. And all you have to do is choose the direction you want it to express in, and then it does. I think I mentioned in the posting for the event that I would talk a little bit about manifestation. And so that goes right along in that same line. You know, I look at the universe as being kind of like a big vending machine. And all you have to do is know the right code. So when you walk up and you see the, you know, maybe it's a chocolate cookie in there that you want, and you go, oh yeah, okay, I want the chocolate cookie. So you look at the map, and there's always a map. And it tells you the key, it tells you exactly what to press. It says you need desire, you need action, and you need to be willing to share it. Because other people like chocolate cookies too. And so you go and you press the buttons and it starts to come out and then it goes, oh, right. And what do? You sit there and you start pounding the machine going, damn this machine, it's its fault, not mine. And you don't think about the fact that maybe it's a belief, maybe it's not enough action, maybe you didn't put any money in the machine. You know? Can you ask a question in that moment rather than coming up with an answer? Do you get the difference on that? We react when we have an answer and we're reacting from the answer. That's actually what the word is saying, a repetition of action. React, right? Can you respond instead? Can you simply look and be like, oh, it got stuck. All right, if I just tip it. You respond by becoming present, taking a look at different perspectives. What's another way that you can manifest, create, really pick what's already there, ready for you? I sort of repeated what you were asking. What else is on your minds?
Empty.
Would you say that it's possibly ego at some level that holds you back from questioning? No? Was it ego that just answered?
Well, I want to know why do the sort of New Age spiritual people, not necessarily you.
Only go dissolved. Yeah, continue.
Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. Why is ego vilified?
Oh, that's great. I don't know.
That's even better.
You know, normally when I talk about ego, I would say ego's your friend. It was created, you created it, to preserve and protect and maintain an identity that you invested into. And I think the reason that we start to vilify it and we start to kind of go, oh yeah, no, ego's this terrible thing, it's because it's the ego giving us something else to distract ourselves with. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on.
Is that the ego, the dominant of the failure? That, you know, like they're always present there because they want you to fail. That's the ego is.
Ego.
The dominance of the failure.
I would agree that ego, I think, uses pride and shame, failure and success as its weapons of maintenance. That's its toolbox, right? And so, you know, here's the funny thing is you might achieve something, and then it gives you pride, and then it's going to come in there next and be like, why are you so prideful? Stop that, you arrogant bastard. And then you feel shameful for it. It's a cycle. And why is it doing the cycle? Because it's a melting piece of ice, and it's like, I have to just keep adding stuff. If I don't, I'm gone. So maybe another possibility of why we vilify the ego is because we're afraid that if we take sides with the ego, that we're going to settle for the identity that we have. And if we settle, we start to melt. And the beauty of that is that no matter what you do, you are melting, dissolving away, and you're becoming, again, something new every time. I think in everything that I did with my meditation, as I was asking this question, what is real? What started to come up was that beauty is real. Because you know it when you see it. That love is real because you know it when you feel it. And that grace is real, because you know it when you experience it. Anything that is present and unchanging is real, only you have to recognize that the expression of it is going to change all the time. Yes?
So Rodolfo, this may be an obvious question, but what value do you see you're going to derive from going speechless?
Oh, this is more of an ultimate, just trying to get me not to be.
It's a doctor's question.
There's a few reasons why I'm going silent. Speechless maybe is the better word for it, actually. So part of it is simply that the feeling came, and I'm listening. The other one is to go inward, and a lot of it is because of ego. I recognize that no matter what, at least for me, no matter what comes out of my mouth, there is a little pinch of ego in with it. Either to justify myself, prove myself, exaggerate myself, you know, all these different things. To say, yes, this is the identity I am right now, all of it, ego. And I'm not trying to conquer the ego, eliminate it, or anything like that. I really do see the ego as my friend, but I want to understand it. And as long as I'm speaking too much, I'm not listening, and I want to listen to find out what's the whole picture. Quick story, when one of the last times that I did silence, I was back in San Diego, and my friend Max Simon and this other guy named Mateo, they called me up. People used to call me when I was in silence, and they knew that they could ask me yes or no questions, and I would just hit once for yes and twice for no. So they called up and they're like, "Are you there?" They're like, "So we figured since you're going into silence and not speaking to us anymore, we're just going to talk to you in Chewie language." And they started speaking like Chewbacca from Star Wars. And they got a laugh out of me. No, I think maybe it's being speechless in what would be routine, what would be wanting to just come out because it's what I know protects an identity in some way. If it's something that's just gonna, the same way that those responses from true questions come up, if that comes up in me, wonderful. Yeah. Yeah.
Aside from going into silence, how does one detach from the ego?
By not trying to detach. You know, one of the things that I've learned recently, and Jeremiah can probably speak really well to this, you know, I've been studying a little bit more into shadow and those parts of us that we are trying to detach or trying to repress or trying to ignore. And what I've discovered more and more is that I can take the first step where I go, okay, yeah, sometimes I'm selfish. And so I think I'm owning it. I'm like, yes, I will own I'm selfish. Great, now I've cleared it. And then the next thing I know, somebody comes up to me and goes, well, I was really selfish. No, it wasn't. Because I didn't really own it. And so I have to take it to an even further level and stop judging selfish. So that same way, stop judging ego, and it stops controlling you. It stops being a factor. It just is part of your whole expression. It's like the quote that I said at the very beginning that my sister shared with me about, you know, you're going to have roles, you're going to have identities. Don't resist them. Be them fully when they come up and don't get attached. And if the ego is there simply to preserve and to maintain those roles, wonderful. Let it do that so that next time you need that role, it's in a nice pristine state. But only use it when you need it. It's like if I walked outside and started socializing with the mic still in my hand.
So you said that you were going speechless because you wanted to understand the ego through silence.
Yeah.
So basically what you're doing right now is reinforcing your ego.
Yeah.
By speaking a lot.
Totally.
So are you trying to understand your ego by doing the opposite practice?
You mean in speaking? No, I just hadn't thought about that. I'm sharing now partly because I wanted to get some footage and some video so that I have stuff while I am silent. I do have a business. This that side of reality. And because I did want to share in this form, in this way, because it's something I'm passionate about before I go silent.
So is that a reinforcement of the ego?
Totally. Of not so much of the ego, but of this identity as teacher, as speaker, as, you know, wise guru man with long, flowing hair.
But
Yeah.
you specifically said not the ego when you asked ego, so you said personality of this personality.
Yeah.
I wonder, there are probably so many definitions of ego as persons in the room, and that's why it's difficult to speak about it.
That's why I'm going speechless.
Yeah, yeah, great. So that's like just what I was wondering about during this past few minutes, where ego, the word, just occurred so many times, that what does it actually mean? You know, it's, I have my definition, but it's not even clear for myself. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this will bring us back around to kind of the main topic of tonight's talk, of what's real, right? I love the fact that everybody will have a different perception, a different perspective. It depends on from what angle you're looking at this moment. We all have a different angle. For those of you who saw my TED Talk, you'll have heard this before. I like to look at the world, or I see the world very much, as an umbrella society. It's this place where, you know, when it rains, what do most people do? They seek cover in some sort, right? They put an umbrella up, they go into shelter, they do whatever they can to keep dry. But the rain is just coming down to wash away what's hiding the truth. It washes away the facade, it washes away, you know, the soil and the dirt that's covering up what's below, that's actually shining as this is the authentic. But we put these umbrellas up and we go around and we use these umbrellas to interact with each other. So we're like, hi, how are you? Oh, no wonder we're such an agitated society. And when you practice presence, or meditation, or maybe you go for a run, whatever you need to do to get into that zone, to be in this moment, you put your umbrella down. And now your umbrella's down, you're looking around, you're like, oh my God, these people are crazy. And you start looking around, you start realizing that there's this truth beyond your own reality. And the first impulse is to run over to the person next to you and be like, put that umbrella down. No, let me have it. And you try to force your truth because it's not the truth. It's just the truth that you've just discovered and made your own. And you try to force it on them. So what I often share is, instead of, like, even in my silence, I'm going to be discovering stuff that probably won't be true for many people. It'll be true for me because I'm experiencing it. So what I share is, go under other people's umbrellas. Take your umbrella, put it down. I know it sounds kinky. You know, put your umbrella down, walk over to somebody and just be like, whoa, like what you've done with the place. I wouldn't have done that, but that's cool. Take interest. It's the same thing coming back around to the question. Can you take interest without the desire to change anything, without the desire for an answer, without the desire for a solution, but just curious interest in what's happening around you? And I'll end what I've got to share tonight with that. So tomorrow, we talk about love, the heart, relationships, connection. And Thursday, expression, authenticity, vulnerability. For those of you who want to find the stuff once I have it posted, either find me on Facebook, Rodolfo Young. You can look under Authenticity Muse. You can also look at my website, total.authenticity.com. Hang out, chit chat. I'll still be here talking for now. And thank you again.